Benson. News.
Okay, we'll start with this per tweet from Michael Benson. Announced, Robert Guerrero, 40 years old, will face Andre Berto, 40 years old, in a welterweight rematch on the undercard of David Morrell versus Sana Agbeko, December 16th. Guerrero won their first fight by way of a UD in November of 2012.
I thought this was supposed to go down on the undercard of Benavidez versus Andre.
Does it really matter when and where it goes down? Either way, it's a rematch 11 years in the making, over a decade, that no one was asking for. And I think it gets lost on a lot of boxing fans, particularly the Haymonites, that think whatever he touches turns into gold, that he has the proverbial Midas touch. A fight like this,
It's a waste of time and money.
that no amount of resources should be allocated to a pointless endeavor like this, because there's no return and there's no such thing as a free lunch. This certainly isn't a fight that the fight fans were asking for, and when you consider that Floyd Mayweather's young unbeaten prospect, Kermel Moton, has boxed 2 times, but nobody's seen him.
He made his professional debut on the same card as Canelo versus Jermel, but practically nobody saw him because it took place after the main event. And the exact same thing happened in his last fight, which took place on the same card as Benavidez versus Andre. So what exposure are you actually getting this young fighter when he's only fighting after everybody leaves? For that, you might as well have saved this slot for him.
But you're gonna waste it on 2 40-year-old fighters that nobody is checking for, nobody's asking about, in a pointless rematch that isn't built up towards anything.
What, is the winner gonna go on a world title run?
I've long questioned Floyd's boxing acumen in terms of business, how he conducts business and moves what are supposed to be his fighters. Remember that Richardson Hitchens used to be one of his boys, but he had Richardson Hitchens on the shelf collecting dust all the while promoting Rolly Romero.
Are you kidding me?
You need me to tell you that Richardson Hitchens is a more polished boxer than Rolly Romero? But Rolly's the one the promotion got behind. Rolly's the one the promotion pushed, and not Richardson Hitchens. Thus, I've often questioned Floyd's acumen for promotion based on how he's handled his fighters, and Al Haymon, who really isn't a boxing guy. What he is a music industry plant that made his way into boxing, which would explain his affinity for smoke and mirrors and gimmicks, as opposed to actually being able to groom fighters, and how the entire stable that he stole...
The fighters he stole from Golden Boy, that entire crop of fighters went bad.
Which one of them did he turn into the next Mayweather? You know, since he gets so much credit for all of Floyd's success, was he able to duplicate that formula?
It doesn't look like it.
The decision to have Jermall Charlo's takeover fight with Jose Benavidez be billed as a co-main event, and the decision to stage a fight like this, to stage a fight between 2 40-year-olds nobody's checking for.
When what they should have did was have Charlo versus Benavidez on the prelim card and have Ergashev versus Matias co-main event.
He's got a wrecking machine of Puerto Rican descent knocking out everybody they put in front of him, and Al just doesn't know how to use the guy, use him to drum up business. He'd rather have Charlo versus Benavidez be the co-main event instead. In this fight between Robert Guerrero and Andre Berto, the rematch that no one on this planet was asking for, you're gonna dedicate a slot to that instead of a young up-and-comer like Kermel Moton.
Well, I see how they ran boxing on Fox and Showtime. Into the ground and out the door.
Maybe Al Haymon has more of a mind for the music industry, where these shenanigans might go over a little better. How many resources and how much time, money, was wasted on the career of Jermall Charlo just for him to turn out this way? I said it in my previous video, and I'll say it here again. For how his career has turned out, you might as well have shipped him off to DAZN and Matchroom years ago, back when they offered him big cash to unify titles with Demetrius Andrade, which would have created a budget surplus on your side of things. Since you're not wasting any money on him, they're willing to pay him the big bucks, and you'll get a slice of that.
That's literally what Top Rank did with Jose Ramirez when Matchroom offered him a big fight purse.
One-time deal. Same kind of deal they offered Jermall Charlo. Top Rank let Jose do it, knowing we're not going to give this guy $4 million for a single fight, but if Matchroom is willing to do it, have at him.
Top Rank got their cut of Jose Ramirez's huge fight purse, and it was at no expense to them since they weren't the ones promoting the show. It didn't cost them anything.
Created a surplus on their end since Jose's fight wasn't promoted by them. It didn't come out of their budget, but they did get a cut of his big fight purse. That's called business acumen, boxing acumen. If Al Haymon had any of it, he would have did the same thing with Jamal. You let him go over there, maybe he wins. If he does, he comes back a hero. If he loses, you then have a precedence to renegotiate his contract.
Trim the fat.
He's got no mind for this stuff because he's not a boxing guy. So when I see a fight like Robert Guerrero versus Andre Berto 2,
Here's a massive waste of fucking time.
just reminds me that this guy's got no mind for this stuff. No business acumen, boxing acumen, and how he handles these cards and these budgets and everything that's going on. If he's good at anything, he's good at convincing people to give him money, but what he does with it.
It's a unique talent, the way he convinces network executives to give him a budget only so he can burn through the cash, frittering it away on pointless endeavors.
Supposed to be going to Amazon Prime now, but on Prime, he won't have as many fight dates to work with as he used to, and there is no time to waste on fights like Berto versus Guerrero. I mean, why even do it?
Why put it on?
No such thing as a free lunch. Everything costs something, so why are you paying the cost to put this on when nobody wants to see it?
He's got no boxing acumen.
In men's heavyweight news, Deontay Wilder brushes off retirement talk. I'm young, I haven't had much damage on me.
He's finally made a wise business decision, a wise business choice, in changing his decorum.
Changing his ambiance, he can now make the kind of money he couldn't have made if he stayed over there on PBC Island. The former heavyweight champion from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, insisted in a recent interview that he will remain an active prize fighter for the foreseeable future. Wilder admitted previously that he was contemplating retirement in the wake of his brutal knockout loss to Tyson Fury in their third fight back in 2021.
Would seem that a cash injection from the Saudis has breathed new life into his career.
Deontay Wilder, despite being 38, said he feels as if he is in his prime. The boxer also contended that he cannot be compared to other fighters his age because of the relatively late start he had in boxing. I'm young. I just turned 38, Wilder said on the Last Stand podcast with Brian Custer, but we've got to understand that I started very late. I started at 21. I haven't had much damage on me. I'm still sexy. I still talk very well. I handle business very well. I'm still energetic. I think I'm a seasoned fighter right now. I used to think about all these other fighters started when they were young, very young.
It is true that Deontay Wilder got a late start in the sport, but to say that he hasn't sustained any damage, I don't know how true that is when it was Deontay Wilder himself that once said, circa 2018 or 2019, that he'd had 7 or 8 surgeries to the same arm, a recurring injury.
And then, after the Tyson Fury fight, I forget which one because there were 3, he ended up having another surgery to the same arm.
That's wear and tear. That's what that is.
That's the wear and tear from being a professional boxer for 15 years. So for Deontay Wilder to say that he hasn't sustained any damage, that's not entirely true. And when you think about the 2 sustained beatings that he took in the last 2 Tyson Fury fights, you know, those are the kind of beatings that take years off your career, that have a lasting effect. And we haven't seen the effect, if there is one yet, because Deontay Wilder's last fight only lasted 1 round. The Robert Helenius fight, a former sparring partner of his. They didn't land on him by accident. In any event, Wilder said, I used to think about all these other fighters, started when they were young, very young, and get to the point where they burn out. I look at some of my Olympic brothers like, damn, they burned out because they've been doing it for so long, and you can't get burned out. But I'm not burned out because of how I started and where I am now. I'm seasoned right now, and a lot of people will see it come December 23rd. What I mean by that, he's going to be facing a former champion like himself in Joseph Parker in what is a very intriguing fight, because you could argue that Joseph is a more skilled textbook boxer than Deontay Wilder, but he lacks killer instincts and Wilder's punching power.
In Wilder's own words, what he lacks in skill, he makes up for in power.
It's intriguing. And Wilder says his contract with Saudi Arabia is for the next few fights.
This ain't a one-time deal.
But we knew that already. If he takes care of business with Joseph later on this month, he will presumably move into the Anthony Joshua fight, provided that Anthony takes care of business on his end against Otto Wallin. Asked about a potential fight with former UFC champion Francis Ngannou,
He's in the running too.
whose rousing yet unsuccessful effort against Tyson Fury in October also took place in Saudi. Wilder said it would be difficult to organize in the immediate future given his obligations to his new benefactors. The timing of the Ngannou fight is going to be a little tricky because of what we have going on with Saudi, Wilder told Brian Custer on the Last Stand podcast. I just signed a contract with Saudi, an amazing contract with Saudi, exciting contract with Saudi. I can't motherfucking wait! Contract with Saudi. So these next few fights are going to be with Saudi. After this, we'll see what happens.
Some of you may recall, back when the PBC were having difficulties putting together a Deontay Wilder versus Andy Ruiz fight, in spite of me not being a big fan of Deontay Wilder, I stressed that changing his decorum could breathe new life into his career. Just the change alone would be enough to get people talking.
So these next few fights are going to be with Saudi. After this, we'll see what happens, but I'm just happy right now to be a part of what's going on in the boxing industry. I'm looking forward to the future. If both Wilder and Joshua come out victorious in their respective fights on December 23rd, it could finally lead to a fight between the two. The former heavyweight champions have been circling each other for years, but have never been able to consummate a deal. Now, that can happen, and that's a byproduct of Deontay Wilder making the smartest business decision he's ever made, leaving the island, leaving the PBC.
Just struck a deal with Amazon, but it's only for 12 to 14 fight dates.
So many of the usual suspects, the usual content creators exaggerating about the value of said Amazon deal, one claiming that it's $1 billion deal.
$1 billion? If it's $1 billion deal, why do they have less than half the fight dates they had before?
As I specified in my previous video, the American fight fan, more so than any other fight fan anywhere in the world, has a penchant for not only lying to others, but lying to themselves.
Which is a separate matter.
As it pertains to Deontay Wilder, in a recent interview, the former heavyweight titleist from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, took exception to the notion that Baltimore's Gervonta Davis or Mexico's Canelo Alvarez were more worthy of being identified as the prime mover in the sport. Davis and Alvarez have both asserted that they merited the distinction, which is a kind of barometer of talent and popularity. According to Wilder, the face of boxing distinction, which admittedly is no more real than a pound-for-pound list, can only belong to a heavyweight such as himself, who routinely fights opponents that are much heavier than he is.
By that logic, Vladimir Klitschko must have been the face of boxing in the previous era, and not Floyd Mayweather.
As ridiculous as that sounds, that's the logic being employed. That the face of boxing has anything to do with the weight at which a fighter campaigns, as opposed to the interest
and the capital their fights generate, which is a barometer for the interest.
I never agreed with the faces of boxing debate Wilder told Brian Custer on the Last Stand podcast. What did that mean? That's something that someone came up with and wanted to put out there and put a name or face to it. Oh, it depends on the popularity. Nah, because everybody gets different opportunities. Just because one guy out there is more popular, that means someone is helping him with opportunities to be out there. There's a lot of great fighters, brilliant fighters, who will never get the opportunity to display themselves. These guys that are out here getting the opportunities, they had the help. They had other people that's been in the business to get that shine on them. Do you understand me?
Sounds like another pity party.
Another poor me parade, because underneath it all, Deontay Wilder knows he's not the most popular fighter. His last box office numbers are a great example of that, and even if the Saudis are giving him a cash injection into his career that allows him to earn more money than he could generate on his own in America.
It's not a testament to how popular Wilder is, that's a testament to how much money those Saudis have to blow.
They're going to be the face of their own individual weight class. Now, when these guys come up, when these so-called faces of boxing come up into our world, and you start knocking on some of these heavyweights, then I'd be glad to say, damn, he is the face of boxing, you understand me? If I had to go down and lose weight to prove, to show them who the face of boxing is, then let that begin. Let the smallest man gain weight and come up to heavyweight. Let's play that game and we'll see who's the real face of boxing. I'll guarantee you that a heavyweight is willing to fight anybody smaller than a weight fighter. You ain't gonna get no small guy to fight a heavyweight. Now, as a heavyweight, I'll fight any man in that motherfucking world.
What the fuck is this guy talking about?
Look at me. I'm probably one of the smallest heavyweights in the business, but all these other fighters, they get mad when motherfuckers get 2 pounds over the weight limit of their weight division. I fight guys 20, 40, 50 pounds heavier than me, and people want to be the face of boxing? Come on, get out of here. You're the face of your weight division, and I ain't hating on nobody. I'm just speaking logically. People have to sit back and think like, damn, you can't be the whole face of boxing if you're just fighting guys in your weight division, and y'all motherfuckers crying about people going 2 pounds, 3 pounds over when I'm up here fighting motherfuckers 50 and 60 pounds heavier than me and still laying their ass out. Hello?
Wilder says that he's a small heavyweight, but there's no weight limit at heavyweight. That's saying that if you're fighting guys that are 40, 50, 60 pounds heavier than you are, that's because you want to, because nobody's stopping you from putting on those pounds and putting on that weight. You're 6'7".
I told you it's another pity party, another poor me routine to where Wilder makes himself out to be a victim because his opponents weigh more than he does, even though no one is stopping him from putting on the same weight that they do. That if you want to walk in there weighing as much as the other guy, you can do that. You just choose not to.
Why is he crying about it? You're at heavyweight. You're at the one weight class where there's no weight limit.
Let's talk about Wilder's Tuscaloosa corn-pone logic as it pertains to the face of boxing. The face of boxing has absolutely nothing to do with weight, and it never did. It pertains to drawing power. It pertains to popularity. It pertains to the fighter that generates the most interest with their fights, which can be measured in their marquee value. And in that respect, Deontay Wilder, he's not even the most popular heavyweight. Why is Anthony Joshua on the Forbes list and he isn't?
Well, it can't be because of how popular Wilder is, or how much more money than Anthony he's making, when this isn't even Anthony's first rodeo in Saudi Arabia. This would be his third.
And Wilder's first as it pertains to Canelo Alvarez, who's actually ranked ahead of Anthony Joshua on the Forbes list. Canelo is that rare fighter, that top earner, that doesn't actually need to go to Saudi Arabia to get boatloads of cash, because his fans generate that for him. That's why he's the face of boxing, and I've noticed the push in the last 3 or 4 years to redefine what it means to be the face of boxing, when the face of boxing has always meant that fighter that is so popular, he earns more money, generates more money than everybody else. And that's not Wilder.
I mean, you're not even the most popular heavyweight, so where do you get that just being a heavyweight makes you the face of boxing?
And he thinks he's being logical.